Hello, Bells Up Studio, and welcome to your strength set for today. It is a big lower body set for the posterior chain, as well as some practice again with some double dead cleans today and some double hinged rows. So you want to have two matching kettlebells or dumbbells. This is a very dumbbell friendly class today. In fact, I think you could probably do this entire class with dumbbells if you absolutely had to. So we're going to go through a warm up where you will need an optional kettlebell. I'm going to give some of you advanced people an option to use that for some Turkish Get Up elbow rolls. And then you're going to want something heavy that you can hold for at least 10 to 15 reps of a bilateral stance Romanian deadlift. So that means that we're not going to go all the way to the floor. We're going to keep our knee bend at a minimum, and we'll stand up through those deadlifts. So it's a lot on the back of the body, a little less on your quads when you're in that stance. And we're gonna go ahead and get started. So this warm up, we're just doing one time through, and we're gonna start with a full exhale, hollow body position. As always, you can take the hollow body with your feet fully on the floor. You can take this with your knees up and elevated or your feet fully straight. So whatever you feel most comfortable in. I would say try the first one with the feet on the floor with me. We're gonna do this a couple rounds just to get a really tight connection to our core and work on sort of compressing to create tension there. So I want you to lay on your back, first round feet on floor here, and we're gonna think about sending our rib cage down into our hip bones. So when you do that, you might naturally notice that your pelvis tucks a little bit there. Then I want you to bring your hands behind your head in a comfortable position. You can interlace your hands, elbows are out to the side. From here, we're gonna maintain that position with our core, so our rib cage should not be floating up to the ceiling. Push our feet into the floor and just roll ourselves up. So I just want you to hold here for a second and notice how it almost feels like your ribs and your hips want to connect to each other. Now roll yourself back down. We're going to do that again, but this time before you roll, I want you to take a full inhale through your nose. Try to make it go into the sides of your ribs and in this kind of upper part of your rib cage. When we get to the top, we're going to exhale all of that air out fully. So I want you to take as much air out of your body as possible, so it almost feels like you're a little shaky. You should feel your abs at the end of this. So let's try it together. So we're gonna take a full inhale through our nose. Now roll up into that little crunch position and breathe out. Fully, once you fully breathe out, I want you to come down and relax again. So at the top of that, you really should feel your abdominal wall, your core. You should feel some nice contraction there. Let's go ahead, try it again. You can bring your feet up for a little more of a challenge or straight legs here. We'll go in, out, roll it back down. I'll give you about 10 seconds here. You can kind of unfurl your spine a little bit. Remember, we're trying to think of breathing down into our ribs so we connect to the floor. Some of you might be full back to the floor. Some might have a little bit of space. It all depends on your personal anatomy. Let's try it one more time. Big breath in. And breathe out through the mouth. Upper back stays connected. Full out breath. All the way down. Very good, guys. So if you struggle with feeling your abs, or it doesn't quite make sense when I say rib cage over pelvis, tuck the pelvis, or no rib flare, this is what I'm talking about. You can practice this before you start any of your sessions to find that connection. Okay, I want you to stay on the floor, and this is an option to use a light to moderate bell. You can also do this with just body weight by holding your arm up. We're gonna come into a fetal position and bring the bell over us. Let's go, whatever side the bell is on, that leg is going to stay bent. The other leg is gonna stay straight. You can take your opposite arm up or onto the floor. And all I want you to do is paint the air with your heel with a nice flexed foot. Don't go all the way to the floor. I mean, you could actually go all the way to the floor if you can keep that control in your core. So if you feel like you're starting to open up, I want you to stop at that point where you can't control the rib cage like we just did in that hollow position. These are called assisted leg raises, and I want you to really think of reaching long with your heel, pulling your shoulder into the ground, trying to keep a strong lockout with this arm as you hold yourself here. Push your head into the floor. You can go as slow or as fast as feels good for you. You should feel the backs of your legs in this one. We're warming up the hips, getting a little warmth in our hamstrings. If you can go all the way and touch again without losing your core, go for it. We're gonna be here for another 10 seconds, and then I'm gonna have you switch to your other side. Sometimes I like to take this really slow and just get that long reach here. Let's go 5, 4, 3, 2, pull your bell down, let's roll. And you can pull it around your head or just flip positions. I'll go around my head. I sometimes don't like to do that because I have long hair right now and the ponytail gets stuck, but do you. Okay, let's go ahead and roll over. Make sure that you're pushing it up with both hands and you have a secure lockout, pushing down your foot before we start here. So let's go down with the heel, all the way up. I can go all the way to the floor myself and keep that core control, but again, you do not need to do that. Notice if your foot naturally wants to spin out, maybe you're someone that it spins in a little more. I want you to try to keep that in a neutral position as much as you can. I tend to lean towards external rotation, so I like to work on turning my big toes into the center of my midline as I'm doing this, so I don't end up with that. So it's just a little more challenging on my hips that way. You might have different ranges of motion and different feelings on the opposite side of your body than you just did. So just go with it. There isn't a right or wrong answer. Usually we are not, I should not say usually, almost always, I don't want to say always, but pretty much 99.9%, we are not symmetrical on each side of our body. Let's go ahead, bring your foot down first, grab onto your kettlebell, pull it to your chest, use the weight of the bell to roll over. Assisted leg raises are done there. So we're gonna do some Turkish Get Up elbow rolls now. I know I just kind of got up, but I want you guys, if you want to, because we've been laying down the whole time, you can do that. You can add a weight here, going moderate to light for your elbow rolls. So we're just gonna try taking 5 rolls in our Turkish Get Up position. Those of you that do not want to do this with a weight today, or you're sort of practicing that roll still, take a baby Turkish Get Up unweighted as a modification here. So legs would be up in the air and you're just practicing the roll. Let's start on your first side. So we're going to come into that position, push the bell up. Remember, bent leg and bell always go together with your get up, and we're going to scoot that foot out a little more to the side. Opposite leg goes straight, toes point to the ceiling. Touch your hip. Your hand will go directly out from your hip. We're gonna find that rib cage position we did in the last 2 activities, the last 2 movements, and then we are going to push ourselves over, looking at the bell, keeping a straight arm, rolling to a side plank. See if you can maintain that core control at the bottom through the roll, and as you come back down. I want you to try to take 5 of these on your own. I'm gonna give you about 45 seconds to a minute to do it. See if you can keep that strong connection to your toes, pointing them up and back, not letting this foot just be lazy on your opposite side. I want your toes sort of up to the ceiling. Activation in that leg. That leg should feel strong, and we're actually pushing ourselves over with the opposite leg. Once you finish your 5, you can go ahead and bring your bell to your opposite side and start your opposite side. I'm gonna show you guys the opposite view of this one. So if you wanna get a good look at it, you can watch this, rewind your video a little bit and try it again on your own, or just pause it and try it again on your own. So I'm coming into position. Remember, you can keep going. If you're doing your 5, keep going. Straight arm, touch my hip. My legs are kind of in a V shape here. Toes are pointed up. I'm pushing myself over with this side, lifting my chest, but not popping my ribs. So I'm not feeling an arch in my low back. I'm pushing the ground down here, and then I'm resisting myself as I roll. Knuckles are always to the ceiling. Eyes are always on my kettlebell, my dumbbell, or my hand, even if I don't have a bell. Go ahead, finish up your reps here. I'm gonna give you just about 15 seconds. You can even try a few more on your own if you so choose. We finally get to come up to our feet to try out some reverse lunges after this one. We're gonna add a little bit of a forward lunge here. So if forward lunges are problematic on your knees, I want you to just do the reverse lunges and alternate your sides for the interval. So go ahead, bring your bell down safely, pull it to your chest, roll over, come up to your feet. We're just gonna do this with body weight. So this is what it's gonna look like. We're gonna plant down one foot. We're gonna take a reverse lunge, come up, step out to a forward lunge, push back. We're gonna try doing this 5 times on one side, 5 times on the other side. So let's go ahead, put our feet in position, hip width apart. You don't want to be too wide here. Let's step back on one side, and then I just realized I'm not going to have enough room to go forward on the other side. So again, if it's too much for you to take this forward lunge, if that does not feel good on your knee, or your butt comes back, or you have to use your hands to push yourself up, not a good variation for you. I want you to practice just stepping back into this position here. It's a little easier to push ourselves forward than to maintain this and push ourselves back. So keep rolling through this. We're gonna go again 5 each side. I'm gonna give you just about 15 to 20 seconds to finish up your other side. So we're stepping, taking that full step forward. If you're limited on space like I am, just make sure that you kind of plan for the step forward. Knee can go forward as you're moving here. Push yourself back, push yourself forward. Try to keep, again, the same position in your rib cage that we did in the rest of the warm-up, just a little harder because you don't have that tactical back to the floor feeling to support you. You have to do it on your own standing. So I like to think, breathe my rib cage down, orient my pelvis and my hips in one line here. Maybe a little squeeze in my butt or a tuck of the pelvis if you tend to externally come up a little bit in anterior tilt your pelvis. Breathe through this one for another 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Long warm up today, but we're gonna move right into our strength sets after this. So make sure that if you haven't yet, hit pause, check the equipment recommendations again if you're not clear, because you will need to have some weights that feel pretty heavy for you today for our posterior chain set. What we're gonna get up to today for our strength sets. We're going through this 4 rounds, and we have another set of kind of like the class that came before this one if you're doing this in the program format, different varying sets of intervals. Today they're a little bit longer because we have a bit more of a grindy strength set than we did yesterday or the last class. A little less cardio mixed in. You're gonna get a lot more time to recover. Your first set's going to last 90 seconds. So that means ideally you have up to 60 seconds where you could be working through this. You'll have another 30 where you could rest or just a little bit more each way, maybe 45. This is also a barbell friendly set. So if you are experienced doing bilateral stance, 2 feet down barbell deadlifts, you could sub that in for this one. We're gonna do 10 to 15 reps with dumbbells, kettlebell, or your barbell of that bilateral stance, suitcase style deadlift. So I want these bells to be heavy. Don't mind that mine don't match right here. If you're in that predicament as well, I'm doing a little studio renovation, getting some new bells. Just switch them every single round. So you'll pick them up with them between your legs and then bring your feet hip width apart. We're going to think of our weight distribution here going into our heels and then also the fronts of our feet pushing through the big toe bed of the sole of your foot. The bells are going to hug your shins as you minimally bend your knees and come down. So notice I'm not reaching the bells to the floor with my arms. I'm initiating this whole motion with my hips going back. So once they cannot go back anymore, that's where I stop. I'll push to the floor to stand up. I'm going to give you some more cues for that as we go through that one, but I want them to be slow and controlled. It's not this. We're not just busting them out here. I want you to really feel these in the backs of your legs. Optional to elevate your toes slightly on a wedge. Also optional to squeeze a foam roller between your thighs if you're someone that doesn't ever quite feel that internal rotation or that sort of pushing down of the sole of your foot feeling doesn't work for you, try squeezing the foam roller. After that, we're gonna go 6 double hinge rows. So you're gonna take your bells, stand, and then find that hinge again. You're gonna pull both of them, wrist to hip, and then you'll bring it between your feet and attempt to do 3 dead stop cleans. I want pops in your dead stop cleans. You can go heavier for the dead stop cleans if you have equipment that allows you to do so. I'm gonna give you some cueing for how to use dumbbells for this if you don't have kettlebells today. You also, those of you that are advanced and have a pull-up bar, have an optional, instead of the rows, up to an RPE 8, so that means 2 in the tank sets of pulls or chins, either one, and then you'll come down and do your dead cleans. 2 rounds of that, you have 2 minutes. After you finish that one, 2 minutes again, you're gonna give me 6 left, 6 right of a double racked reverse lunge. I mean these to be heavy because you have 2 minutes. So I want a big heavy set. You're going to step back, step forward. If you have a barbell set up and you wanna use your barbell for this too, you might have to have 2 different barbells to fit it in. If you're doing the RDLs that way, I'd probably say pick one. You could do a barbell on your back and take some heavy reverse lunges here. So a lot of options for you today. I'm gonna give you guys a few seconds to get your equipment set up, and then I'll continue to give you cues as we go through this. Remember, this is not a class that's going to feel like you are dead on the floor. You're gonna get a lot of rest today, so I want you lifting heavy for you. You can add reps, but I suggest the first round, take it kind of slow and treat it like an additional warm-up set. So don't push it and don't get crazy if you have a lot of rest. You'll be able to make some judgment calls for your next round if that is the case. So 20 seconds, we're gonna start those RDLs. I want you to get your weights out here. Place them between your feet, step between them so your ankles are in line with the bells. We're gonna use this first set just to pick, or this first rep, just to pick our bells up off the floor, and then position our feet in a little bit closer to hit the Romanian deadlift position. Let's go for it. 3, 2, and 1. So I find my core, hips go back. I'm going to push through the floor to stand up and then arrange my feet here. My weight is in the backs of my feet, but I'm also pushing down the inner sole of my foot, especially the big toe bed. I'm going to send my hips back to the point where I cannot anymore and then push the ground away. I am not reaching the bells down to the floor even if I am that flexible. I'm keeping a strong squeeze of my armpits as my hips go back. I also like to imagine that my booty cheeks are sticking up to the ceiling and I'm kind of spreading them out. So I'm almost turning my inner thighs in. That's where that foam roller comes into play, or even like a squishy ball that you use for Pilates. You could even roll up like a beach towel and stick it in there. If you're someone that you're like, I don't get that, I hear you saying that, but it doesn't quite work for me, I want you to think of that action of pushing your thighs together without your knees coming in together is kind of like what that'll facilitate. Those tactical props sometimes can really help, especially if you're training at home and you're a little nervous because you don't know if you're quite doing it right. So try these things out. This is another reason why in Bells Up Studio classes, we recommend that you do them all twice so you get that experience of adding reps, subtracting reps, trying props not, changing up your weights, and just getting better at shit. You have 10 seconds here until we go into our 2-minute set of hinge rows, pull-ups, and dead cleans. Remember, it's 6 double hinge rows followed by 3 sets of double dead stop cleans. You can use separate weights if you so choose. Here we go, 3, 2, and 1. So you have 2 full minutes here. So I'm gonna go a little more narrow with my rows. I'm gonna stand up, and then I'm gonna hold the bells, if I have kettlebells, in the front part of the handle, so it helps me to pull them back. I'm gonna pull both of them back without losing my core. So there's a lot of core work in this class today, a lot of support that you need to do for yourself in your bod here to keep yourself in this position, because we're not here ever rowing. We're also not sticking our booty out and letting our rib cage go. When you finish, bells come under you. You can change them up. If you have dumbbells today for your dead clean, you're just gonna hover them and take more of a hang clean. You don't need to go all the way to the floor. For kettlebells, you'll stand over them, bring your hips down. Heels can come up as you catch your bells. I want you to think of lifting your chest slightly before the clean, keeping your grip light here, and pushing through the floor as you pull your elbows behind you. They should always be touching the bod. So if you're getting that little wrist slap, it means that you're probably pulling your elbows out. I call it like a chicken wing. You don't want to do this. You want to think straight back all the time. So here, these rows are kind of setting us up to do the clean. See how that works. Keep the bells really close to your body. We have just about from this point another 90-ish seconds to go. So we're kind of rolling through our set here. Get your second round of these if you haven't done so already. I'm actually going to give you a tiny bit more time, I think, on this first set and this first round. We won't stay as on the clock, just to give you this time to practice. So roll through. I want those hinge rows to feel really nice and tight. So you're going to have just about an extra, maybe like 20, 30 seconds in this round that I'm going to give you, just a specific one, so don't get used to it. So from here, this is where that 30 seconds is going to start. You should be finishing up those hinge rows and those dead cleans. You might be wondering, Lacey, if I'm doing pull-ups, do I have to do 2 sets of RPE 8 pull-ups? I would like you to do another set of pull-ups. Your second set could be RPE 8 for that round. So maybe you'll get less reps because you're a little more tired, but I still want you to push to whatever you have with maybe 2 left in the tank. Okay, let's get started. We're gonna hit our reverse lunges. This might be the most challenging one of the set because I want you to go heavy here. Try it out. We're gonna rack them at your chest. You have 2 minutes to do this. Clock is on in 3, 2, and 1. So I'm gonna come into my swing clean so I can use momentum to lift up those heavy bells. Elbows can come slightly up. I'll push to the floor to raise myself up. So I'm stepping back, trying to keep my face and my chin relaxed, trying not to reach my chin out here. I'm stepping, pushing through the floor, stepping, pushing through the floor. You can set the bells down in between your sets here of sides because you have enough time. For context right now, this is just about 45 seconds on the clock. So you have another minute and 15 seconds before we go back to our bilateral stance deadlifts. For those of you that are using a barbell to do this one, you might want to just take a little breather. If you're like, okay, 6 and 6 felt really easy for me, guess what? I'm gonna give you the option to double your lunges. So if you have moderate weights today and you're like, I can keep my weights up for the entire set of 12, I did that about a minute, maybe I'll do another set of that. So you're gonna get 12 each side versus 12 total. 45 seconds before we move on to the beginning again. Remember, we're doing 4 rounds of this. I'm gonna do a little more complete movement sets with you guys this round if you wanna watch for form instead of talking you through it, but we'll still keep going with those cues today. So another 30 seconds before we start again. Remember, you only have 90 seconds for the deadlifts versus 2 minutes, which you have for everything else. We're kind of building in that rest as we go through our sets. If you're finished and you're chilling, kind of move around, rotate your wrists a little bit, plan your attack for your deadlifts. Did they feel easy the first round? Could you go up a little bit? Those of you using heavy weights, I'm gonna give you a tip for grip as we go. Here we go, let's get ready for your set. 3, 2, and 1. So if you want to get a higher rep count today, 10 to 15 is pretty high, but you sort of start to lose grip of your weights as you're doing this, and your grip is the limiting factor, which can sometimes be the case for a Romanian deadlift. What I would say is take them up to the rep count that you feel like you're starting to lose your grip, set them down, and then maybe you try to repeat that rep count. So for context, if I'm setting them down, now, I'm gonna shake it out a little bit, let my hands rest a little, and then I would pick them up again. Try to find that same rep count here. As I do this, my gaze is down, my gaze is forward, but notice my head is not bobbing with my body. My chin is staying in the same position. It'd be the position that it would be in if you're staring straight ahead standing, or not like this, we're staring straight ahead. So try to maintain that as you go down again. You have 30 seconds here, so you should be resting at this point. Also, a PSA for wedges. So we usually use squat wedges to push ourselves forward. So we're straight up and down in our squat. Nice center line, right? You can elevate, keeping your heels on the floor, your toes to help push your hips back. So some of you that maybe don't feel this as much in your hamstrings, or it feels a little too easy with the weights you have, try elevating your toes, and you're gonna get more stim back there. It's gonna help you push your hips back, and it might give you a little more challenge. Okay, your hinge row dead clean or pull-up set is coming up in 3, 2, and 1. Remember, you have a full 2 minutes in this one to complete it. So if you have mixed weights like I do, I want you to switch them. I actually prefer doing this one with a set of dumbbells, just because sometimes they're a little bit easier to hold. But this kettlebell grip here is a bit of a game changer, flipping them on the, kind of like this way. So the handle's here, and you're holding it at this part of it. It just facilitates, again, that angle a little better of getting them back behind you. Breathe through this one and go right into your dead stop cleans. You can use sort of this lighter weight if it's your row weight for you with the dead stop clean, because I want you to work on quick hips and power in this one. See how fast you can thrust your hips. You have, for context, just about a minute to finish this set. So I was just about 1 rep away from finishing it in total with taking little breaks to talk. So you should have a nice comfortable set to get in those pull-ups, to get in the second set of these hinge rows and these dead stop cleans before we move on to our reverse lunges. So picking them up here, I just flip my hands like that. I just turn them a little bit. You can get some movement in your body here. Like, you don't have to be super static. Like, you can kind of move a little in your knees. I just don't want you like squatting and reaching. But if you want to get like a little fluid to get some more reach, we want as much movement in your back as possible in this. Okay, final 30 seconds in your set here, and then we will go on to those reverse lunges for set 2. Bells will come in front of you, and maybe you up your weight a little bit for this one. And if you are struggling in the rack, I get it. It's a tough one. It'll be a lot of grip, but you could hold these suitcase style. You could also go 1 kettlebell goblet style. Always up for interpretation here. We'll go 3, 2, and 1. So bells come up. We're gonna push into the floor, take your step back. Try to look straight ahead as you do this. For those of you that lunging can be a little problematic, maybe you feel like when you step, you kind of come up like this. Holding 1 bell slightly in front of you here can help you with that forward momentum counterbalance, being able to resist just a little bit. So keep that in mind as you lunge here, that sometimes it's not exactly a modification, but changing up the positioning of your equipment can really help you. And this is what we learn with the wedges. This is what we learn with sometimes these holds. It's just gonna keep your chest up more. So if you're someone that falls forward, if you have to hold something here that really prevents you from falling forward, it's gonna give you a chance to actually work on the hip strength, the glute strength, the quad strength, the balance, the adductor strength needed to complete the lunge. You have just about a minute here, so you should be getting close to your rest break. Remember, this full 2 minutes isn't 2 minutes of lunges, it's 2 minutes of total time for lunging and working. So I kind of imagine these to be a 1-to-1 work-rest ratio. So that means the time it takes you to do the movement equals the time it takes for you to rest. So in this case, it would be 60 seconds or so of lunges in the rep counts that work for you with the equipment selection that works for you, and then about 60 seconds of rest. You have here 20 seconds until we get into round 3, going back to our bilateral RDL. You guys have already made it halfway through your strength set today, so really evaluate, are my weights feeling heavy? Maybe you want to change it up the second time you do this class. If you're today, like, I don't have the equipment to change it up yet today, just keep that in mind, make some notes. Let's get your RDL. Feet come between your bells. Let's go ahead, pick them up. 3, 2, and 1. Remember, I start here. I find my hips back. I fully stand, and then I don't lose that core control as I go here. Breath can be in, up. You can also breathe in at the top, hold it, and then breathe out as you stand. We should not be overextending the hips here. We should feel like a strong plank position when we're standing at the top. Glutes should be tight. I even want you to think about pulling your quads up and try to, again, relax your toes just a little bit here. See if you can do less gripping your feet, more pushing into your feet as you go through this one. Remember, we only have a 90-second interval here, so your rest break should be coming up fairly soon for this one. 10 to 15 reps broken up, however works for you. You could even push it to 20 if you break it up and feel like you've got some left in you. This is your 30 seconds until we go into your third set of the hinge rows and the dead stop cleans. You guys are doing a fantastic job here. This class kind of in the middle of the week of the program. So if you're following this class's program, this would be the second class of the week. We usually give it a little slower, a little heavier, should feel a bit like a grind. Again, shouldn't feel like you're doing burpees to the finish and collapsed on the floor at the end. I want you to feel strong after this session, but like you did something. Let's go 2 minutes here, 2 minutes here. Clock is on 3, 2, and 1. So we're gonna flip the bells here on the bottom, if that feels good for you, to take your rows. Standing, moving your foot, and then setting them down is a safe way to go after that. Remember, it usually happens that injuries or whatnot can be a part of the mix if we just drop the weights. So we never want to just let the weights drop down or lose tension and let the weights take us down. That's when our body is not braced and ready to move the weight. So just think, every time you're setting something down, we're not just dropping it. We're actually thinking core control, set it down. The rep is not finished until your weights are safely on the floor and you're not gonna run into them like I keep running into the plant. Those of you that are OG Bells Up Studio people, I don't know if you guys remember when I got this plant, but some of you might remember when it was like this tall, and now it's gonna be as tall as the ceiling pretty soon, which is kind of crazy. This is your 1 minute break here. 1 minute break, or you might be finishing up. You have enough time. Dead stop cleans. Why, again, are we practicing these? This necessarily is not for brute strength here. It's to practice picking up your kettlebells. I like to pepper clean sets into our training sessions because, as you know, with free weight training, you're limited by the amount that you can hold. So whenever you see small rep sets of these cleans, it's your chance to practice racking something that might scare you a little bit. So if you're feeling really confident in your form, maybe you go up in your weight here because you only have 3 reps. Anytime you see under 5 reps, you can kind of get a sense that I'm wanting to push you a bit with how actually heavy the weights are versus making you go either really fast or go to capacity with it. Okay, let's go ahead, get ready. We're gonna start our set of reverse lunges. Clock is on here in 3, 2, and 1. How to make these more challenging? Well, one, you could change your equipment and add a barbell if you're good at that. Or a lot of times I like to offer, as you guys know from past classes in this program, a step-up variation. You could elevate your front foot a little bit so it really makes you get a little more depth here. So that's one way that you can change up, making this a little bit more challenging for you if you are not just adding weight. Another way that we play around with making things more challenging is adding tempo. So you might say, I'm gonna go down 2, or maybe hold like 2, 1 in the back, and then come up. All of these things you don't have to worry about, but if you're in a gym, let's say you're traveling right now, you don't have a good selection of weights, those are ways that you can make modifications in the moment to make your training session feel a little bit more robust and not leave anything on the table versus being like, okay, I need to just bang out 20 reps of this lunge. You can actually change up how challenging it feels by adding those bits of reps. Okay, make sure that you're resting here. I'm gonna give you 1 minute to rest, recuperate, get yourself back together, and then we're gonna take 1 more set of our full strength session today, and then you guys are finished. This is a nice beefy set today. I think that when you sit down, you might, after the past 2 days, after those squat volume that we had in the previous class, and this leg day, but opposite, you might feel some tender things happening tomorrow. Okay, so let's go ahead and get ready to start our final set here. This is where you go big, everything that you have left, because today's class should again feel like an RPE 8 level session. Want this to feel challenging for you today. This is not, again, your cardio set. This is lift some heavy shit today. Let's go for it. 3, 2, and 1. I find my abs, I stick my hips back. I know I've talked about this before, but advanced movements are not completely changing the basics of the movements. People that are very strong, that have been lifting a long time, that you would maybe consider an advanced lifter, they get really good at doing the basics pretty flawlessly. So even someone like me that's been using kettlebells for about a decade, has been lifting weights for a long time, I still do these checks. They just happen faster for me than they might happen for other people. That's it. Just a little bit faster in me doing it naturally. So if you're kind of working on, I'm still thinking through these things, that's normal. You're a more intermediate level. You're going to get better at it the more times you do this stuff. So not only do you get stronger, the goal is that your technique and your awareness improves as you train. You have 30 seconds here and you're done with deadlifts for the rest of the session, so go ahead and try to take a break now if you're still lifting. I want everyone to rest. We're gonna go for our hinge rows, our pulls, and dead cleans next for the final time. So take the pressure off yourself. That's why I like to call this stuff a practice. We're literally here lifting weights, getting stronger, changing our bodies, changing how we feel about ourselves, building confidence. But the technique aspect of it doesn't just show up after 1 lift, 1 set. Let's go ahead, get your hinge rows in 3, 2, and 1. That part comes with just years of completing reps and getting better at understanding how to set your body up to do the work, right? So lift the weights, all that stuff. Same rule's true for other pieces of modality, like if you are using a barbell, that obviously is a different level of skill. If you're using a machine in a gym, you still have to have that awareness of how to angle your body to set yourself up in the machine. Of course, those make it a little bit easier, right? Because they kind of put us into a position and we don't have to do a lot of work to have the spatial awareness to find that. But sometimes, honestly, you don't have a damn gym. Like if you want to work out at home, if you want to train kind of efficiently, quickly with minimal equipment, you have to learn all this stuff with control, breathing, positioning before you can make that happen. So look at this like an investment in yourself. When you come to classes at Bells Up Studio, I'm always gonna try my best to give you more options, to give you coaching, to give you technique cueing, then I probably will be programming a class to a beat. So I would say the 2 days a week that you're not with me, or 3 days a week, go to your spin class, put on your playlist, go for a run, take your hot Pilates class, it's beat-based, and then come to this for your foundation. Okay, let's get our final set, guys. We have our reverse lunges. Let's go for it here. Clock is on. I'm gonna give you just a little bit. Since it's our last set, let's take a tiny bit extra. I'm kind of feeling in like a giving mood today for our rest breaks. Okay, let's hit it. You have 2 minutes to finish this out. Maybe you try to hit that double set for this last round because there's no more rest. It's the end of class. Here we go. 3, 2, and 1. So my set there took about 15 seconds and I was moving quick. My weights are not heavy for me. These are my teaching weights. These are not the weights I'd be using. I'd probably be using, for me, 2 16 kilos to complete this set. Maybe 2 20 kilos if I was feeling really spicy. And if I did that, my heart rate would be so high I couldn't talk to you guys very well. That's kind of where I want you, something where you could set them down and need to kind of do this for a second. You don't have to bop right into your second side. It's totally fine for you to take some time, because right about now, you have another minute. So if those are 20s, I'd probably pick up those bells, do my next 6 in the same exact fashion, and then I would be finished with that. We don't need to overload ourselves when we have free weights like this, because again, our core, our backs, our shoulders, our arms to a degree, all getting some training just to hold those weights in the center of our body. One reason why free weight training, kettlebell training, we go a little lower volume, it's kind of the longer path to least resistance, but you're gonna get really strong because you're not just working individualistic muscle groups at once. You're kind of working everything. Okay, guys, if you have not finished yet, I want you to get ready to set your bells down in the next like 20 seconds. This is that faux rest break that I gave you from before. And let's go ahead and just come down to the floor. I'm gonna do a little bit for your hips here to finish. So we'll bring let's actually sit in a 90-90. So we're gonna bring our right leg forward, our left leg behind us, our hands behind us here. And I want you just to turn your body towards your front leg and then walk yourself down to the side here. Let your arms come to the floor, or you can sit here and push yourself back. Try not to overly twist towards the behind you side, especially if you're flexible. See if you can reach, but also send your hips forward. So I'm thinking hips forward, and then that's gonna dictate how far my hands go. I'm feeling this through my glute medius and my hip here, all the way down the front of my quad on this side. And that's usually, in this position, what you're going to be stretching, that back leg side. Let's go ahead, switch it. We're gonna switch our leg position here. Let's start with our hands behind us and think of moving our hips forward without losing our core, and then you can take that turn. You might get a little pop in your back. You might notice one side feels tighter than the other here. Try to relax into this one. Breathe in through your nose, breathe out through your mouth. If you sit at a desk all day, this is a great session to hit favorite on, because you're getting a lot of work for your hips, a lot of extension in your hips, and that kind of counteracts the position of being seated and shortening your hip flexors in that seated position. Your body gets used to the things that you put it through, right? So if we're always here, this is getting shorter. When you're hinging, it's lengthening it. So this can actually help those of you that feel like you have tightness in your backs from just those positions that we hold now in the modern world, seated and whatnot all day. Okay, guys, enough talking. You guys made it through an amazing session today. I hope that you like this program. You can always favorite it, like I said, if you do like it. And I will see you in your next class here on Bells Up Studio. Remember, get real, get strong, bells up. Bye.